Episode 13. Let's make a fretboard.
1, 2, 3, 4!
So last time we spent a bit of time fixing up the headstock, and we've got that looking very nice again now. And I think with the tuners on, it kind of does make it look as if that never really happened, which is really, really good. So it's time now to crack on with the rest of the neck. And what I'd really like to do is start work on the fretboard on this. Now, I've made a lot of fretboards over the years on this channel, and when it comes to the radius, I've always used one of two techniques with them. I've either completely sanded them in by hand, which takes bloody ages, or I've planed the bulk of the radius onto them and then kind of sanded it in from there. So I thought this time it'd be nice to do something a little bit different. And a few weeks ago I was perusing YouTube, and I was at a channel that I've watched quite a bit over the years called The Next Project, and John, the guy who runs that channel, was making one of these router rocky cradle type jobbies for radiusing fretboards, and he 3D printed it, and being the generous chap he is, he actually uploaded all of the files onto the web so that they can be downloaded and used if you so wish to. So I thought that would be a bloody good idea. So I downloaded them, and I've spent the best part of this week printing them because they are quite chunky files and they do take a little bit of time, but I think it has definitely been worth my while. So we can get the neck out of the way. We can bring in the results of my printing, which is 5 pieces. This is the base for the router. Now, he's included a bunch of bases for different types of router and kind of a general purpose DIY one that's available for all sorts, that should be able to be adapted to take any router. This one is specifically for a Makita 701 router. I haven't got one of those, but I have got my Katsu router, which is, to all intents and purposes, a direct copy of that, and it fits in there absolutely fine. So I'm confident that's going to work. We've got the 2 cradle parts that will eventually run on when it's all done, and we've got the 2 bits that kind of tie it all together. And I've got a bunch of hardware to put this all together with. I've got way more hardware than I need on this particular project, but it always comes in handy. And I'm doing more and more 3D printing now, and having all of these heat set threaded inserts will be a major boon for when I'm doing other 3D printed projects. So while it is way more than I needed, it will come in handy in the future. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find some M6 inserts, which are those, and I'm going to start off by inserting those into these holes in the end of these bits so that we can bolt it all together. And to do that, I'm going to need to break out the soldering iron. And I think all we're doing with these is we just place it in position and just hold the hot iron on it for a few seconds. It went in a little bit too easy for my liking, but we'll see what it looks like once it's kind of cooled off again. And do the other 2. And then with all of those inserted, It's just a case of bolting it all together. And to bolt this together, I'm using these kind of furniture bolt type things. They're an Allen head, but they're quite a flat head with quite a large area to them, just to kind of spread that load out a little bit. I literally just ordered all of the hardware off Amazon, dead easy to get hold of. It's all listed in the next project's original video, which I'll obviously link to in the description. So that's the first part sorted out. So next up we need to assemble this bit, which is the bit that the router runs on. And to do that we need some of these skateboard bearings. You can never have too many bearings, and they simply bolt through. There's a little recess in the back of there that's been printed in that will hold a nut. It's just a straightforward job of screwing them into place. And then that just rolls in there like that, which all seems to fit really, really nicely. Now, as I mentioned, there are numerous different versions of this base plate, and some of them are just on a slider. They're not actually on these bearings. So if you don't want to go to the extent of kind of buying bearings, etc., you can do it that way. But I think actually the bearings will probably give you a better job. So next up, I just literally need to screw this base in place, and then we can go about making the actual carriage that we need to make that will hold the fretboard, and this will run up and down on. And I've just very quickly rattled up this little jig for it to kind of run along off camera. It's just a great big chunk of, it's actually chipboard flooring, that when I clamp it down to my bench, it's absolutely dead flat. I've had to do a little bit of planing on here just to make sure that's the case, but it is really, really straight and level and even. And basically this just runs along here, and you kind of work your way through and just take off the material that way. And I've done a little test piece, as you can see here, and this is my 10-inch radius gauge, and even without any sanding or anything, and I do anticipate we'll have to do a little bit of sanding, that is absolutely spot on. So very, very happy with the outcome of that. So next up we need to head over to the bandsaw and start milling down some rosewood, so we've got an actual blank that we can radius properly. But before we do that, could you just do me a quick favour? Head down there, hit that like button if you've enjoyed this so far, and also hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. It's free, it won't cost you anything, but it will benefit me and the channel enormously, and it will help me get this out to a wider audience, which in turn will help me produce more and better content. Thanks a lot. Okay, so I've just literally kind of cut myself a slice of rosewood off that great big lump that I've got, and I've flattened the underside with a plane, secured it onto here with some super glue and masking tape, and I've set this up so that the router is actually running just a hair above this top surface for now, and we'll take it down in stages and see how we do. And there we have it, all shaped up. It obviously needs a little bit of sanding, and as we speak I don't actually have a 10-inch radius sanding block. It's on its way, and I'm hoping it'll be with me before very much longer. But looking at that, that is absolutely spot on for a 10-inch radius, with just a few little lumps that need to be kind of sanded out, but that will take literally a couple of seconds. This is much wider than it needs to be, so it does look a little bit thin on the edges, but once we get this cut to its actual shape, that should be absolutely perfect. So very, very happy with that. This worked brilliantly. So pleased with the way that it kind of performed. The one thing I would say though is that if you do build one of these, you need to be a little bit mindful of the amount of waste that is building up on the bottom board, because it can make it run a little bit kind of juddery. But apart from that, you're absolutely fine. I would say each time you go down and do a pass, just kind of sweep that off and it'll be fine. And my sanding block has arrived. Now normally when I sand these it is with a very rough grade of paper, but because this has come out of the routing setup so smooth, I'm just going to go with some self-adhesive 320 on here and just use that to clean things up. And hopefully there won't be too much sanding involved, and to be honest that's kind of coming up very nice. There's a couple of little marks just at this end. Well, I just want to work out, but apart from that we're all good. And to be honest, the one mark that's left here is kind of off to one side and will probably get mostly cut out, so I'm not going to go any further with that. I think we can call that done. I'll just get a level on there. From what I can see, that looks absolutely as flat as you like. So all in all, I think we'd have to say that that is an absolute success story. Very, very happy. Okay, and there it is, done. I've got to say, I've really enjoyed using this bit of kit. It has worked absolutely brilliantly, and it was well worth the effort of kind of printing it out and making it. It has made producing this fretboard so much easier and quicker, with a lot less kind of hand sanding and everything needed. So massive win there. You might have noticed as I was doing this, in a few shots I was a little bit wobbly. Don't think that's anything to do with the actual jig itself. It was just that I'm kind of very new to it, so I just needed to get my technique down. As my old mate Jimmy DeResta says, you go to school on the first one, and I've certainly done that this time, but we've had an amazing success. This is the 10-inch version of the jig. It comes in a range of sizes, and all that means is that you just have to print an additional pair of these at the different size, which you might think is a bit of a bind, but to be honest, and anyone who's got a 3D printer will know this, your actual input into the printing process is quite limited. You kind of set the thing running and it does its own thing for a few hours. So for me, that's not a big issue. Now, if you don't have a 3D printer and you want to do this kind of stuff, you can buy these ready-made. I've seen the one from Noceti guitars, and I'll leave a link to their Instagram page. And I think they've got like an Etsy shop or something. So I'll bang those into the description so you can have a look at those too. From what I can see, they're very well made, and the reports I've had from people who have used them is that they work really well. So if you don't have a printer and can't make your own, they are commercially available as well. And if you are making any number of fretboards, I think this is a very worthwhile investment, because just the time saving alone makes it worthwhile. So next up on this is we need to get this board slotted, and we probably need to get it cut down to shape and some fretboard markers in, but that's all going to be for the next episode. I'm going to leave this one here. So as always, if you've enjoyed this, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and check out those links in the description for the next project and Noceti guitars. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.